The day the falls went silent, a forgotten story of power, fear, and human ambition. In the summer of 1969, something happened that sounds almost impossible today. Niagara Falls, one of the most powerful and iconic natural wonders on Earth, suddenly went silent. No thunderous roar, no clouds of mist rising into the sky, no booming crash of millions of gallons of water exploding into the river below. For the first time in thousands of years, the American side of the falls was reduced to bare rock, exposed like the skeleton of a sleeping giant. And behind this extraordinary event was a plan, bold, risky, and unlike anything the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had ever attempted. A world wonders. What happened? Tourists who arrived at the falls in June 1969 were stunned. Where they expected a massive wall of rushing water, they instead saw a dry cliff face, dark, jagged, and covered with decades' worth of fallen boulders. The river that usually fed the American Falls had been diverted through a series of gates and dams. Engineers had worked around the clock, placing almost 28,000 tons of limestone and steel to block the water's path. Newspapers around the world ran headlines like, "Niagara Falls turned off. The roar is gone. What have we done to the Great Falls?" It felt eerie, like the heart of a living creature had stopped beating. Why stop a waterfall? The reason behind this extraordinary feat wasn't greed or electricity. It was fear. Scientists had long worried that erosion was eating away at the American Falls faster than expected, and large chunks of rock had been breaking off for decades. If nothing was done, experts thought the falls might one day collapse into a giant rock slope, losing their iconic shape forever. So the Army Corps decided to study the problem up close. But to do that, they needed to do the unthinkable: shut off the water. The bare face of Niagara. With the river stopped, for the first time in human history, people could walk at the edge of the dry American Falls. Engineers, geologists, and photographers climbed down into the frozen silence, studying every crack and crevice. They found hundreds of years of fallen boulders piled at the base, deep fissures spreading along the rock face, evidence of ongoing erosion that had gone unseen under the water. Some workers even discovered coins, cameras, and artifacts lost by tourists long ago. But the scariest finding was the unstable rock foundation. Niagara, the mighty waterfall that symbolized power and permanence, was far more fragile than anyone imagined. Crowds came just to see the impossible. Thousands of visitors traveled from all over the world just to glimpse the dry falls. People stood along the railings in disbelief, taking photos of the silent cliff. Older residents whispered that it felt wrong, like nature had been paused. Journalists wrote that the exposed rock looked ancient and tired, as if it had been carrying the weight of the water for too long. For a few months, Niagara Falls wasn't a symbol of power. It was a reminder of how even the greatest forces of nature can be changed or stopped by human ambition. When the water returned. By November 1969, the Corps completed its studies and opened the gates once again. A low rumble echoed as the first flow of water returned. Within minutes, the familiar roar shook the air, mist rose again, and the falls came back to life as though waking from a long sleep. The world breathed a sigh of relief. Niagara was roaring again. In the end, the engineers decided not to permanently alter the rock or reshape the falls. The risk was too great, and the natural beauty was more important than perfection. A strange moment in history. Today, most people have never heard of the year Niagara Falls was turned off. It feels like a myth, something too unbelievable to be real. But for those who witnessed it, the memory remains. The day the mighty falls went silent. The day humans held back a natural wonder. The day Niagara revealed its hidden, vulnerable face, and then, like a miracle, the water returned, stronger, louder, and more alive than ever,